My name is Dr. Heather Sedges Wallace. If you don't know me, I am an assistant professor and human development specialist in family and consumer sciences. My particular background is in child development and family studies with an emphasis on mental health, wellness, and community connection. So today's plan, I just want to share with you, there's going to be three main parts to this webinar. The first, I'm going to share a background and research brief just to bring you up to speed about what's going on regarding farmer and family stress. I'm going to be going through a lot of the current work that's out there at the national, regional, state, and I would like you, if you have examples of what's going on at your local levels, I'm going to open it up for people to share kind of some responses that have been happening at the local level. So be thinking about that as we move along. A big thing for me when sharing all the current work that's happening across the nation and locally is to emphasize how we can access that information and how you can make it useful for yourselves. So following this webinar, you will be receiving an email with a link to this entire presentation, that has all of the hyperlinks in it. And you'll also be receiving a link to a OneDrive folder that has many resources that I have curated from across the country and locally, so and across the state. So I'm excited to share that with you, and I am very hopeful that it will be of great use to you. The third part of this webinar is going to be something I like to call the productivity protocol. And this is something I developed about, probably about 9 months or so ago. And this is in direct response to farmers who are experiencing acute stress in a way that we can work with them in ways that is preventative in nature as well. So we'll be walking through that, and so a little bit of background why we're even talking about farmer and family stress. Farmers are currently experiencing a lot of stress, as all of you are probably very familiar. Farm income has dropped about 50% in recent years, and it has remained depressed ever since. We have seen examples of this with regarding a variety of different tariffs and taxes, and the dairy industry is in particular has had some acute experiences with high stress levels, and that creates an incredible burden on our farmers, not only across the nation, but in particular in our state and at our local levels. Suicide overall is at epidemic levels. We have seen a 33% increase between 2015 to 2017 are the most sound reports that I've got available to me right now. That's a 33% increase. It is at the highest rate it's ever been for teenagers, and it is at the highest rate it has ever been for individuals living in rural areas. So we have this increased risk for farmers and their families, particularly those in rural areas, and most especially for those who have experienced a drop in their income. There's additional stressors that we call those external stressors that are impacting the family. As I mentioned earlier, there's a little bit of conflicting information about the nature of and the rates of suicide. Is it at the highest levels we've ever seen? What's going on? Yes, the rates are the highest we've ever seen. Is it disproportionate to farmers? There was a CDC report that was shared. Let me see. Yeah, there was a CDC report that was shared not too long ago, that cited that farmers are most at risk for suicide and that sort of thing. They've come to recalibrate that report and say that the data specifically was focused on individuals in rural areas, and especially those in high stress industry. So that includes farm workers and other areas. So the background research is this: suicide is at a major tipping point right now. It's and we're seeing increased risk for those living in rural areas with high stress level jobs. So the indication there is that, yes, this is a major issue for us right now. That's the research brief that I'm going to be providing today. And the reason for that is I'm not going to be spending a ton of time on that because I really want to get down to the resources and what's going on and how we can help. The information around what's going on around that topic is embedded in all of these resources and in other presentations. If you have need to share with your local coalitions or your different groups of people, please do not hesitate to contact me. I have so many resources on this. There's no need to recreate the wheel. So if you need a more in-depth response to this research brief on this topic, please let me know. So now I want to move a little bit into part 2 and specifically focus on the current work that's happening. I'm going to start by going through what's happening at the national level. So the USDA has recognized that farmer suicide is a problem. And for the 2018 Farm Bill, there were a lot of inclusions in the and going into 2019, many inclusions that were specific to farmer stress as it goes through an opioid response. What we are seeing partnered with an increase in suicide is an increased use of opioids and prescription painkillers amongst individuals who are in high stress situations. So the USDA is responding with increased attention and support to that topic. The National Farmers Union has created a very robust website specifically about this topic. And they have this press release, and they're urging USDA and others to proactively address farmer suicide crisis. There are fact sheets, there are resources here. Again, this presentation will be available to you with all these hyperlinks following this webinar. So I encourage you to go to these resources and see what's going on here. So I am in the middle of a presentation. I cannot subscribe now. So I'm just going to keep this here. The Farm Crisis Center is another wonderful resource at the national level. This is a website that has many resources around and it's supported by the National Farmers Union, but it has, as you can see here, Farm Aid Hotline, the direct connection to the National Suicide Hotline. And what I liked here was local resources. I encourage you, following this presentation, to go into the online directory and find what resources are available and applicable to you in your area. On a cursory look at things, I was able to find immediate references to our AgrAbility program and the Tennessee Farm Bureau, the resources that are there. So we also have resources that are from other institutions and other groups. The North Central region has been very active, for extension has been very active on this topic for many years. They're offering a webinar on May 23rd about communicating with farmers under stress. And North Dakota and South Dakota specifically have really been at the forefront of this. And to that end, they have been active participants in what's happening at the regional level as well. So you'll see here that I have some screen clips of resources. The University of Maryland, because they're not our region, I wanted to highlight some of their work as well. They have some really great resources there. Both of these documents are hyperlinked back to that source. So when you get this presentation, please look through there. So that's kind of at the national level. At the national level, people are saying, yes, We have a problem. Let's respond. There is not a overall cohesive response yet. It seems to be at this point in time, there are regional responses and then some at the national level. So what I'd like to share with you are some things that are happening within our region in the Southeast. So in early December this year, in 2018, the University of Georgia and a number of other partners hosted the Rural Stress Summit. And again, this is going to be all hyperlinked back to those resources. The Rural Stress Summit brought together land grant institutions and their partners from the Southeast to really understand what's happening around this topic and what people are doing to address it. There were so many resources and so many wonderful things that I have curated and compiled all of those resources into a folder. So I have a whole separate folder here of all of the resources that you will have available to you following this webinar, okay? You'll see a lot come from North Dakota State. They were at that summit and did a great job of sharing resources. And you'll also see resources around topics that are maybe not specific to farmers, but they are about managing stress and staying healthy when it comes to managing stress. So I encourage you to access these resources. I also want to share with you kind of some of the resources that you'll see after this presentation here. So going back to what's happening in the Southeast, the University of Kentucky actually won a national award recently. Dr. Reed there, she's if you're on Facebook, she's under Ag Nurse, and she's really been doing some very impressive work around this topic that has been of great support to us in Tennessee and to many others throughout the country. She actually gave a presentation not too long ago in our state via webinar, and I can make that available to you as well. But what she talks about, she is a farmer, she was a farmer, she's been in the field for a long time, and what she developed was something called a dinner theater. And I just really, it's garnered a lot of national attention, and so my computer kicked out this hyperlink. But what it is it brings people together, they share a meal, and as you can see here in the picture, they use participants to kind of go through what a conversation around a dinner table in a farmer's home might look like with their family and some of the stresses that they're experiencing. And it really opens up the door for conversation. She has had a tremendous response to this, and I really encourage you to look up those resources. And if you'd like to host a dinner theater, that specific dinner theater plan, she has it as a fully laid out and everything. Just connect back to me, and I would be very happy to help get that going for you. There's other land grant responses, particularly the University of Arkansas has done a really nice job of creating some very easy to use and access publications. And then there are a number of presentations that have happened in the past year and a half or so around this topic. I also have a publication, let's go into the state level. I'll talk about that in a minute. So let me pause here and see if there's any chat box items that we need to address. All right. Are those folders you just pulled up available to all of us on SharePoint? Yes. Following this webinar, you'll be receiving links to all of that. I'll make that very, very clear. I just didn't want to inundate you all, and I wanted to be able to, if there's additional resources following this webinar that I need to add in, I wanted to be able to do that before I publish that link. But everything will be readily available. So going into part two, the current work that's happening in our state, there are a number of different things happening. So the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network, I'm going to pull their website up here, which is not it. Apologies for that. So the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network has been really at the forefront of what's going on around this topic. And they've been a really great partner. We have a subcommittee specific to this topic right now. Included in that, yeah, my notes for all of this. I am so sorry that here we go. So in June of 2018, the group got together with Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network, and we met with a variety of different people. But as you can see here, we have representatives from TDA, the Farmers Cooperative, Farm Bureau, Farm Credit, the Cattlemen's Association, MTSU, Centerstone, which is a mental and behavioral health organization, dairy producers, pork producers, TSU, and UT. We're all at the table. Mary Beth Henley, one of our own agents, is sitting there at the table with this group and really making plans on how we're going to be responding at this from a statewide perspective. So be ready and to hear and see more of that information. As I mentioned just a little bit earlier, in Tennessee, we have what's called the MANAGE program. And the MANAGE program is designed to have a within-state regional response to farmer crisis. They respond to issues ranging from farmer suicide and family stress all the way through to financial issues and everything that you can imagine. So what you're seeing on my screen here, and this is available to you in that folder and it's available online, is a quick cheat sheet of the managed regions and who the managed agents are. Okay, so this is the most recent version of the managed agents that you will see. These are your first responders. If you have something happening and you're not too sure what to do, then I really encourage you to reach out to these individuals. You are, of course, very welcome to reach out to me as well, and I will put you in touch with your best resource. I do want to highlight down here, so here's all of my information. I also want to share down here some of the mental health resources that were included in this document. These are resources that are available statewide, and some are a little bit more local. And what I did was to try to provide just a quick cheat sheet. So an action step following this webinar may be that you want to print this out and post it by your phone. Be ready to respond to calls. And Chuck Danhauer has retired. Okay. So thank you for that. That didn't, I will reach out and see who has replaced him there. On this resource guide, you will also see the signs and of worrisome stress and strain. These are the issues that you're going to be looking at and trying to pay attention to when talking with people who you might find are under particular stress. So if there's a change in maybe their typical behavior, maybe you're seeing increased drinking or use of drugs, maybe you're seeing increased bouts of rage or anger or anxiety. These are times to step up and say something, or to empower members in their own families to say something. The myth that if you talk about suicide, that it will encourage someone to commit suicide is exactly that. It is simply a myth. It has been refuted time and time again that just by reaching out to someone and saying, are you safe with yourself? Have you been thinking about dying? That will not cause someone to commit suicide. That will not cause someone to start thinking about suicide. The reality is they've already been thinking about it, and it may be a great relief for them to receive someone who is willing to reach out and to have somebody by their side. And it may also increase their own personal awareness of how they are exhibiting their behavior and things that they are saying, that they are experiencing stress, because many times individuals going through situations are just kind of plowing through and not realizing that they really are under a high stress situation. I always like to include immediate response resources for you all. I encourage you right now, if you don't have your phone handy, make a note, but I have this number in my cell phone, and it's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. It's free, it's 24 hours, and it's 1-800-273-8255. It's talk, and I just have it in my phone as suicide prevention. And that is something that if you don't actually physically push the button and call, you would actually be able to share that contact with someone and that information. In Tennessee, we're very fortunate to have a helpline and a chat line. If you went to suicidepreventionlifeline.org, you could actually help somebody chat through with a live trained professional. And if you're with someone in need of help, stay with that person until they are safe. If they are on the phone with you and they are in immediate danger, keep them on the phone, get another phone or get someone else to call an emergency line. Persuade that person to receive the help. And if you are with that person and it seems to be an emergent situation, take that person to the hospital. I would rather you have someone upset at you and your actions than to have you standing at someone's funeral. I really, really encourage you to, as difficult as it may be, to encourage people to reach out and support one another in this way. Because drug use and alcohol use are incredibly tied to this topic, I have links here to what's going on around substance use around this topic, and then other trainings. And then here is just other resources. This is the same publication you'll have available in that folder to you, and just some other resources here. So I'm going to pause and let there be any. Is new agent, manage agent, and okay, yes, Iris is included in that publication, so that's great. Thank you, Eileen. Speaking of Eileen, Eileen Legault, we have on the webinar with us today. She also works with AgrAbility, and she's been a very excited and willing partner around this topic that I'm so grateful for. And I have a link here to the AgrAbility website specific to Tennessee and some of the work that they have been doing around that topic. Eileen, if there's anything you'd like to share, I know this is kind of just impromptu, but if there's anything you'd like to share, I would encourage you to unmute and share.
Thanks, Dr. Wallace. No, I'm just here to listen too. Thank you for taking on with Tennessee, being the lead person and compiling all these resources. The only thing I really had to add was with Dr. Reed. She actually has put together a toolkit that has all the skits, and you can host these in your county that, as you said, we can share with them. So I would definitely encourage people. It's a great thing to do with farm families in your county.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eileen. Perfect. So this is a really great example of why I try to hold off on publishing the link to all the resources before the webinar. What I'm going to do is make sure that we have access to that toolkit from Dr. Reed for the dinner theater, and that we have all of the correct permissions in place to use those at the local level. And I will include that in that resource folder. In addition to all of the other things that are happening in our state, you have your very own FCS Human Development Team. So that's me and Dr. Devereaux, and we have another specialist on our team, Dr. Katie Conrad. And we are all very well aware of what's going on around this topic and have been very actively developing resources. In the folder that you'll be receiving a link to, and you can also access this in the publications and area and the news you can use area for extension. I wrote a publication that you can literally cut and paste into local newspapers. You can read it on radio shows. And I was very lucky to have some ag agents in our state review it and consult on it. So I encourage you to use that as well. And I will be publishing this toolkit for you to access as well. So talk to me about things that might be happening in your counties and communities. I'm really opening up this time for you to share. I just wanted to leave some of that time available for you. So please feel free to unmute yourself and share what's happening. Or if you have a particular interest in farmer and family stress or have questions at this time. Where do you go for news you can use in SharePoint? When I send out the email, Linda, I will provide a hyperlink to the news you can use. And I will provide a hyperlink to the SharePoint folder that all of this will be in. And you'll be able to download the entire folder to your own computer so that you don't have to go and fish around to different websites for it. We're going to make this really easy on everybody. So have you all had any increased requests in your counties for information around this? What makes you want to be at this webinar in particular? Let me see that. Let me ask that.
This is Sarah Ransom.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi. I wouldn't say that I've had an increased request, but I know in the last year or two, I mean, even down to my second graders in classes, they're going, last year was terrible. I'm glad it's over. And it just seems everybody's under a lot more stress and pressure. And so I was wanting as many materials that you can slide into other programming or ideas and things to help. And then Rick, my ag agent, he does like a farm safety day. And I thought this may be a great side piece to put in.
I think that's a great point that you're making. Thank you very much for bringing up one that that is happening and that you're going to add in. So that's something I want to say to all of these resources. They are plug and play. They are drag and drop, whatever the phrase, use at will. I really, really want all of this information to be used and in ways that you find are best for your communities. When it comes specifically to children, since you're going to, Sarah, you mentioned about children being at increased stress levels as well. You know, I find that to be really interesting because families experience stress as an entire unit. And oh, thank you, Hal, for telling us about Danny Morris covering Chuck Danhauer's territory. So children are experiencing the stress that is happening in their own families, and they're exhibiting those behaviors and communicating in those ways. So we actually have a lot of really great resources. Dr. Devereaux and I have partnered, and Dr. Conrad and I have a grant in which we are partnering with Yale University to pioneer resources in the state of Tennessee and around helping children deal with stress, recognize their stress symptoms, and what to do with that. I will include a subsection in that folder specific to those resources. There's an app that I love. It's called the Mood Meter, and it's free, or maybe it's $1 now. I think it might be 99 cents now. It's called Mood Meter, MOODMETER, and it's wonderful to use with children. I use it with my own son on a nearly daily basis, and it's a color coordinate chart, and it helps you and others put words and language to your feelings. So he might be stomping around the house angrily, my son, and I'll stop and say, oh, hey, can you show me what color you are on the mood meter? And he'll come over, and it's so visual, and he'll say, I'm here. And so he'll put his finger on the color. that it is, and it pops up a word to describe it. I said, is this word describing how you're feeling? Are you feeling frustrated or angry? And so if he says frustrated, it leads you into, and it says, I feel frustrated because. And then that encourages for children in particular to start to unpack. And I'll be honest, it's really helpful for adults too, to really unpack, all right, why am I feeling this angry right now? Why am I feeling this impulsive right now? Why am I feeling this depressed right now? And then it asks you, do you want to stay here, or do you want to shift to a different way of feeling? And if you say you want to shift, it provides immediate resources for that. So I will include, I will include that resource as well. Other questions, other comments? When PowerPoint crashed just before here, it cut out the entire last part of my presentation here. And so I will need to recreate that for you. But that was the conclusion of part 2. And so part 3 is what I want to go into and talk about with the productivity protocol. And I want to unpack that. But first, I want to respond to a couple of different things that are in the chat box. So first, I want to go back to what Hal Pepper mentioned. He said, Danny Morris is now covering Chuck Danhauer's territory for the manage agents. So I will see about making that change to that document and making sure everyone is knowledgeable about that. So Doug Burney says, I have a family right now that I am concerned about because of the farm/business stress they are experiencing. I've seen the kids withdraw. Very good observation, Doug. My attempts to converse about their circumstance is constantly met with, you wouldn't understand. Suggestions on continuing that conversation. Oh, I really, really, really like that. That you're sharing that, because I don't like that they're going through that. But Doug, I am going to pause my response to that, because I want to share with you this productivity protocol, and then I want to come back and see if you find that that's going to meet your needs, or if we need to troubleshoot some other things, because I can only imagine that it's not going to, you're not the only one on this webinar that has experienced that. Webinar series 7 habits for effective farmers and farm stress part. Oh, is that that's what you put the hyperlink to there, Eileen? I see. Okay. Link above. Yes. Thank you, Eileen. I appreciate that. So Eileen, put that, and I'm going to create a document that has all the links that we're sharing here, because this is such a resource rich webinar. There's no way. So, so Doug, we're going to use your example there as a scenario following going through this productivity protocol. So as I mentioned, this productivity protocol that I'm referencing was developed in direct response to, can that webinar be shared directly to farmers in our communities, or is it only UT access? Which webinar, this one or the 7 habits? Sarah?
Habits.
The 7 habits. I don't know, Eileen, can we share that widely?
It's Hal Pepper. He maybe can answer. It's Center for Profitable Ag. It says direct farm marketers, value-added entrepreneurs, and agritourism operators. So it sounds like, yes, we can share it.
Okay, Hal just texted that it's 7 Habits webinar is available to everyone. So that's going to make this resource toolkit that everyone's going to get nice and rich. We're going to round out all of our resources. Thank you, Hal, for letting us know about that, and thank you, Eileen, for bringing that to our attention. So, all right, so the productivity protocol was developed in a specific response to dairy farmers having some of their contracts canceled about a year ago, and just actually less than a year ago, about 9 months ago. But there was a lot happening, and so I partnered with Dr. Liz Eckelkamp, and who's this dairy specialist for UT, and created what I'm calling the productivity protocol that she shared with farmers. and different places. So what this is, and you'll also, in this toolkit you'll be receiving, you're going to be receiving a 15-minute presentation that is not this, what I'm saying right now. This is going to be a plug and play presentation from me about this protocol. So you do not have to worry that you're going to be the one having to go through it all. You will be able to set up something and hit play, and it's going to be a 15-minute presentation walking people through this protocol. So what it is, in response to when a farmer has a heifer with mastitis, what do? You follow the protocol. What do you do when farm equipment is not working appropriately? You follow a protocol. And you go through the steps of what you have to do to remedy the situation. And so what I have done is create what I'm calling the productivity protocol. Because when a farmer and their family is experiencing stress, they are inevitably not being as productive as they possibly can. We know that the culture of farm families and rural communities is very well focused on self-sufficiency and self-reliance. And, just the way Doug was saying, the response that you just don't understand. Well, you might not understand that specific situation, but no one escapes this life without a little bit of stress that impacts their productivity. If you have been that person that has never had stress in your life, please do let me know, and I want to know all of your secrets. But I'm pretty certain that we've all experienced issues that have made us maybe not make mistakes in a variety of different ways, or not pay attention as well, or be a little tired. All of that is productivity related. So what I developed is this productivity protocol. So when a farmer, or when you see a farmer, or when family members see a farmer not being as productive as they possibly can, then is the time to come through and access this, this resource. So this is, make sure, can everyone see my screen here? Make sure everyone can see this. And again, this will all be available to you. So this is a productivity protocol. This is, okay, wonderful. Thank you, Diane. So this is and I have it in Word form and I have it in PDF form. You can print it, you can use it, you can do whatever you want. But my idea for this was that a farmer could use this, whether one-on-one with you, or you give it to them, they could sit down and do it with their family. I would be sure to follow up. But this is information that they can keep posted, or keep in their, folded up in their wallet, or in the tractor, or in the barn. But creating something, putting the date on it, and then including the dates that it's been updated. The reason for that is because it's so important to make sure that this document is a living, breathing response, that this is a resource they can access at all times. So their name, the physician of record. So sometimes they might not have a psychologist in their area that can respond, or something like that. So this may be the physician or therapist or counselor that they want to reach out to. This would be a trained professional. Putting their name and phone number. And then I also have on here the date that this was shared with that person, because sharing this protocol and normalizing the conversation around stress and stress responses is what will prevent catastrophic things to happening in families. It is so important to begin to talk about this. Next of kin, and the date shared with next of kin. And again, coming back to the point of encouraging conversations. Now, if a person doesn't want to have a conversation and they just want to fill this out and leave it on their spouse's dresser, or on the kitchen table, fine. But it's really to those parts there are to really encourage someone to share what they have here. So because being able to deal with stress and recognizing stress sometimes isn't the most obvious for some people, I start out the protocol about listing 3 activities that you enjoy doing for fun or to relax that are not work related. So many of us will say, oh, I really love working with children. And if you're a 4-H agent or a split agent, that can sometimes be work related. So really starting out on a positive note and saying 3 things that you enjoy doing for fun or to relax. If you are working with someone or they are saying, I don't do anything for fun, there is no fun, I don't have any ways to relax, those are red flags. Okay, so this item, number 1, acts in a variety of different ways here. 1, to help them find things that they might be willing to do, and 2, to really raise awareness that if they are not finding ways to de-stress and to re-engage their prefrontal cortex, and I'll go into that in a minute, then they need to start troubleshooting that. And maybe this is going to Bible study. Maybe this is going for a walk in the evening after dinner. It doesn't have to be a grand, expensive hobby. These can be very simple things. The next part here is identifying 3 people who care about you. And again, this portion has multiple purposes. This is about not only identifying people to whom someone can reach out if they are in immediate distress, but it's also to help someone understand who the healthy people in their lives are that they can reach out to. So this may be a pastor, this might be their brother, this might be a spouse, this might be a grown child, this could be a neighbor. These are people who, when you think about them, and if you were to pick up the phone and say, I've had the worst week of my life and I just can't see straight. Or if you call them and say, I'm just wondering if you wanted to grab a coffee and talk. I just need a friend. These are people who are going to say yes. All right. So helping them identify those individuals. Again, if they do not have those individuals or can't come up with at least 3, that's a warning sign, because isolation is one of the contributing factors to suicide. We do not want people isolating. We want them connected and reaching out for help. So the next part here, number 3, name 3 things you are good at doing. This could be anything from I brush my teeth effectively to I can still bale hay at my age, or I can still manage the accounting for the farm. This doesn't have to be anything big, and it doesn't have to be there's nothing too big or too small here. These are just name 3 things you are good at doing. Again, we are coming back to the reflective portion and the importance of being self-reflective for individuals. So we want individuals to say, you know what, I'm not a failure at every single thing I do. Because when individuals are in extreme stress and constant stress and feeling like it's never going to end, the notion that they're bad at, and just because one thing's not going well, a lot of times that translates to everything else in their life. And so I'm having a bad day, therefore I'm a failure at life. Well, no. It's just one bad day. It may actually just be one bad hour, one bad meeting, one unfortunate event. But how many times do you've had a bad day, and then actually this just happened to my mom this week. She had a difficult day, and then she went out to her car to go grocery shopping, and there was a crack in her windshield. And you know that feeling of, I just can't catch a break. And she called me and she said, I can't believe this. Nothing ever goes right. All of these very extreme comments. And I said, Mom, I love you. It is a crack in the windshield. Have you ever had a crack in your windshield before? Well, yes. Was it the end of the world then? No. Is it the end of the world now? No. And then you start to troubleshoot through those issues. So helping people really understand that while things seem insurmountable right now or in the moment, that there are still things that they are good at doing, and they can capitalize on those great aspects of themselves in order to address what's going on in their life. People have a very hard time when in great stress of understanding how they can leverage their own strengths and resources to address their own situation. So helping them see that and walk through that. So in this next portion is the objective of this is to really identify the warning signs of stress. And because a lot of times individuals, particularly those who are used to being very self-reliant, very autonomous, it's not likely that they're going to be able to write down, oh, I feel stressed in these ways. So what I have done here is I've created check boxes of the most common signs of stress. So we have everything from easily annoyed or irritable to other people asking, like if they've noticed other people saying, are you okay? What's going on? You look tired. You seem angry. Are you annoyed? And then all of the other, there's physical and behavioral symptoms here. So if they're checking these off, these are indications of stress. And it's helping them really think about what's going on. Of course, I left room for other examples. I think that's always important. And then here's the protocol portion. Identify methods to maintain personal productivity. If a person is experiencing any of those symptoms that they listed above for 2 weeks or more, then here is a 5-step response to those feelings. So number 1, tell your next of kin or other trusted person that you've been having these symptoms. And then create a plan to check in with that person daily to reflect on whether those symptoms are better, same, or worse. So this is one of my suggestions is to, if someone has a calendar available to them, or even if you print out off of Word, a blank calendar that has maybe 8 weeks of just blank squares, and say, you know what? It may be helpful to rate your feelings every day. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how crappy was it today? Was 5, with 5 being just the absolute worst, or whatever scale you want to share with them. And then what will happen is they will be able to do one of 2 things. They will either be able to see the objective data that, oh, I am in a bad spot. We need to do something about this. Or they can see that when they do something that can help them, that it may be, those feelings may be less, and how they can activate that over time so that they're seeing less of, I'm having my worst day ever, to more of, you know what, this day wasn't great, but I can fall asleep tonight knowing I tried my best, right? So keeping a calendar handy to help people rate their day and see those changes over time can be very, very helpful. Step number 2, they're going to do one of the enjoyable activities they listed above every single day and immediately, all right? Step number 3, talking to a trained professional and sharing their symptoms. Again, the symptoms that they checked off above. They're going to create an action plan with that person to help manage those symptoms. So that action plan might include doing the things that they listed above that they're good at, or that they enjoy, or a plethora of the other resources that you're going to be able to share with them that are going to be in this toolkit. And then step number 4 would be having them list one thing that's worth living for. We want them to physically write this down because we want that reflection. We want them to know that they are worth more than only a farm or only this or only that, that they are living for so much more and they are worth so much more to this world alive than they are dead. And then step number 5, if they are in immediate or intense distress, they need to call the suicide hotline. They can talk to some, and that's completely anonymous. And I've included the TTY number. So this is the number. If an individual is hard of hearing, they can go to resources in their community for accessing the type of resources they will need to be able to read out what's being said on the phone. And I believe AgrAbility probably has additional resources for that if someone needs a TTY line to use. And then texting home to 741-741 will bring up a conversation with a trained professional to whom they can discuss their feelings and their concerns. And then, of course, calling 911. That is the printable version of this. Questions, comments? All right.
Hi there, my name is Heather.
So earlier I referred to the presentation about this protocol and that you'll be able to plug and play, and I have it available here. And I just want to let it play for a few minutes so that you can get a taste of what it is and see how it can be of use to you.
Hi there, my name is Heather Wallace, and I am an assistant professor and human development specialist in family and consumer sciences with UT Extension. And I am so grateful for a moment of your time today and being invited to share some information with you. So let's talk for a minute about what it means to be productive. Being your best self means having all that you are and all that you know and bringing that to make something efficient and very manageable and productive. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit through something I like to call productivity protocols. And what those are just very simply things that we can do to make sure that we are maximizing one of our best resources. So let's start by doing this. Let me ask you a question. What are some things that you manage or monitor on the farm? Anybody, just call something out. Oh, what was that? Oh, okay, great example. That is a great example. So one of the things that...
I apologize, but some of that video is cheesy. So that's why, that's just the cheesy part of it.
You probably also monitor are very specific things, like a herd or your crops. Somebody call out an example of a particular warning sign of one of those items being in distress that would make you want to react. One of your best resources, in fact, it's your most valuable resource. You wouldn't be able to do anything without it, and that is you. So turn to the person next to you right now and share ways that you monitor and manage yourself to make sure you're being the most productive person you can be on your farm. I'll wait. It sounds like there's some really interesting conversation happening. So you discussed all of the ways that you monitor your own stress levels and reactions and concerns. What's that? you don't monitor yourself? You mean to tell me that you just push through? Yeah, that's what I do too, unfortunately. But you know what? Sometimes, and definitely over time, that can decrease our productivity. So if we are stressed and we just push through it, did you know that there are very biological reasons for why that decreases our ability to make logical and sensible and well thought out decisions on the farm? It's true. I want to show you some examples of why that is and really unpack that a little bit. So there's this really crazy hormone that we all have, and it's called cortisol, and it's a stress hormone. And what's really interesting about this hormone is that it is released by our bodies, but it's not regulated. So it doesn't know whether we just need a little bit of cortisol or a whole bunch. It just floods our system, right? And it also doesn't tell the differences between different varieties of stress. So for instance, say you go out to a fancy restaurant and you look down and you realize you put on mismatched socks. Cortisol, that's stress. What if you all of a sudden realize you're late for an appointment and you're rushing to get out the door? Boom, cortisol, right there, flooding your system. What if you're being chased by a bear or a deer or a monkey or a tiger or bees or a snake or an entire beehive? Any one of those situations would result in cortisol being released and flooded into your system. And in these last examples, it's really smart for it to do that, right? We need that. We need that survival skill. Think about the stress of farming, right? All of the things that you are managing day to day. Well, your body is not telling the difference between being chased by a bear or the stress of making the budgets work, making sure things are in order. Whatever that stress is, cortisol is being released, and it has really big consequences. So there's a really great, brilliant professor that I'd like to bring into this conversation, and she's going to help us understand more about cortisol and what it does specifically to our brains. Oh, hi there. How are you? Very nice to see you. I was just in my office this evening playing with my brain and happened to hear that you wanted to learn more about it. So what I'd like to share with you is that this beautiful brain is something that we all have, despite evidence to the contrary sometimes. We all have one of these. And it's a beautiful, complex thing. And what happens when cortisol floods our system is that it impacts all of our brain. And there were two parts that I really want to point out today. One is the amygdala. This is the most basic, rudimentary portion of our brains. This is what triggers that fight or flight reaction. And it really is there to keep us safe and protected and to be very reactive and quick. We also have what we call this frontal cortex. This is what some people call the wizard brain. So what happens when cortisol floods our system, when our body perceives stress of some kind, is that, now pretend my hand is a brain, okay, and my thumb is the amygdala, all right, this very reactionary portion. What happens when our brains are flooded with cortisol and a reaction to stress is that our frontal cortex, this front portion here, top portion, turns off. Cortisol literally floods our brain and kind of turns off that portion of the brain, leaving your amygdala exposed and reactionary. This means when you're stressed out, you're not thinking logically with your frontal cortex. think about it when somebody cuts you off in traffic. If you're anything like me, then that startles you and you get really annoyed. Well, what happens as soon as that person cuts you off? Boom, stress, cortisol, you flipped your lid. Well, how are you going to calm down? There are lots and lots of different ways to do that. And I have a very brilliant professor that I know. I believe she's available for additional comments. So let me toss it back over to her. Here she is now. Take care. One of those ways is called square breathing. And it's really easy. Picture a square, and each side is either an inhale or an exhale. So you start with an inhale, and it's a count of 4. And I've timed this next exercise so that you can follow along. Simple enough, right? If I can talk. So one of the things that you can do in order to figure out ways to best manage yourself and to be as productive as possible is to have a productivity protocol. We have protocols for so many other things. Why not one for ourselves? But this protocol will help you identify your own personal warning signs. So we have lots of warning signs around the farm, right? Telling us what to do, what not to do, and what to look out for. And just earlier in this presentation, you told me ways that you monitor and manage signs of stress in your crops or in your herd, and ways that you work through that. So that's all this productivity protocol is. So as you're working through it, consider things that might be helpful to re-engaging re-engaging that frontal cortex portion of your brain. So there's lots of easy things that you can do. And some might be as simple as watching a funny movie or show. You know, laughing is laughter really is the best medicine, right? You can do a hobby. So if some of you are thinking, oh, this is great, this is my excuse to go fishing more often, then take it and do it. I want to suggest visiting with enjoyable children. Another option is go and take a walk or exercise. You can do that outside or maybe even at your local store where there's air conditioning. There's a really great app that can help you formulate and walk through some of these ideas, and it's called My3 if you're into using apps. A lot of you might play an instrument or sing or pray. Those are really great ways to kind of calm down and let your brain take a rest for a while. Volunteering or reading, or you could even try more of that square breathing. There are also more resources that are similar to square breathing that are free. You are in particular stress, and you'll see on your protocol that there is a section for this, that it's important to reach out for help. And there are lots of ways you can do that. You can call someone, you can call a professional, you can actually log on to this website and chat online. There's a Tennessee specific hotline, or you could even send a text message to either this 844 number, or you can text the word home to the number 741741. And you'll be linked with a live person, a trained professional on the back end there, who will talk to you and help you kind of work through ways that you can manage your stress so that you can be most productive. I'm going to leave this slide up at the end of this presentation so that it's available to you as you work through your protocol. And just to share with you some of my information, if you have any further questions or concerns, I encourage you to reach out. You can reach out directly to me, but you can also reach out to your Family Consumer Sciences agent in your county. They have all received training about this topic and how best to help you work through how to be most productive. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you find some of these resources helpful and productive. Take care.
All right. So that was the video that you will have available to you in the toolkit that I will be sharing. And I am going to pull this back up. And as anyone who has worked with me or been at any of my presentations or done anything in any way, shape, or form around me knows that I am as cheesy as it gets. So if you feel that that presentation in particular is too cheesy, and I can tone it down. We can create cheesy and non-cheesy versions of that. So that is a productivity protocol. This will also be, oh, Diane says not too cheesy. I love it. Thank you, Diane. We'll have to reassess your own level of cheesy at a different time. But I will have that available to everyone and accessible. Oh, thank you, Julie. I love it too. So let's come back up to, so Doug had a scenario, and Julie added this piece in here too. She says, I confronted a teacher with whom I work one time because she was saying things that sounded like she was depressed. She thanked me, but assured me she was not suicidal. I think it was a wake-up call about her language and attitude at work. She is fine. Our relationship was not changed for better or worse by my discussion with her. Julie, that is such a great example of one being brave and stepping up and saying that and doing so in a caring way, and the power of helping people recognize their behaviors. I mean, my goodness, the teachers coming in just like, my son and I always call it droopy dog. Are you being a droopy dog? It's a bit like the cartoon characters, or an Eeyore or something like that. That really is very contagious to people. Oh, Heather Kyle Harmon says, in the cheesiness defense of the presentation, people really do like interactive presentations. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Doug, I kind of want to come back to you, and I want to see what you think about this protocol, and how if you think it could be something you might use with the family that you were referring to earlier, or what we can do about that. Let me bring this back up for everyone to be able to see what Doug mentioned. Doug says, yes, I think this will be a helpful way to proceed. All right. So there are a variety of other scenarios that are out there. There have been examples in the past couple of years of people coming in with a condition, or calling the extension office and saying, I have bugs all over me. And that is and maybe they don't have bugs all over them. And that's a condition called parasitosis. And it is actually a mental health diagnosis, and where they feel imaginary things, and it can be related to stress. And I want to, I will have, again, resources in that SharePoint folder for everyone around that. And if you're seeing someone, if that's happening to someone, I want you to, again, contact a trained professional around that issue, and connect them with resources. Another scenario may be that you hear a spouse or partner or a child talking about mommy or daddy or my husband or wife. They've just been so stressed out lately. So it may not come directly from direct observation of a person, but maybe through someone else. And I'm soliciting anybody's response here, what are some ideas for troubleshooting that? How would you respond to that with someone? If you heard a mom or a wife say, or if you heard a wife say, man, my husband, he's just been so stressed out on the farm lately. or even not that, or he's just been so irritable lately and I can't stand it. And he's been really withdrawn and I don't know what's going on with him. How would you respond to that?
This is not anything scientific. It's just me thinking.
Good.
If your spouse has a brother, sister, close friend, someone besides the spouse, like besides you, that they can talk to, maybe suggest that they give that other person a call. For my husband, he's got 2 brothers. He's very close with his brothers. Sometimes his brothers can help him get to the center of his issue better than I can because I'm right there all the time. And sometimes I'm part of the problem. His brothers are very helpful, you know.
That's a very good point to make, Julie, that sometimes we are part of it. You know, maybe that person is feeling stressed because they don't want to show they're stressed. And I know that seems very iterative and very kind of almost convoluted, like I'm stressed because I don't want to tell you I'm stressed, right? It's like, so I love the idea of connecting back to someone that is maybe just outside of the immediate circle. I would also add in that maybe reaching out to that person saying, hey, here's what I've been seeing. I have these resources. If you think we need to use any of these resources, will you connect back with me? If you have concerns, will you let me know? And maybe really clarify when it is appropriate to maintain the confidence of the person, or when it's time to say, you know what, we need to come together and we need to address this. So Sarah Kite says that, and you're hearing my dogs in the background, I apologize. She's saying, stressed? Me too. Let's go to chai tea. I do that every time I say it, y'all. I do. You could also go get a cup of chai tea. That would be lovely. Or you could go to Tai Chi with people. So that, and just to do something relaxing, take a walk. You know, what's so interesting to me, when we engage with someone and do something that kind of takes them out of the immediate environment, like going for a walk or trying a new activity, sometimes it opens up conversation. And instead of just going to lunch and saying, so what's going on with you? That sometimes can feel a bit like an interrogation. But engaging in some kind of activity, either like around the holidays, I have a group of friends, we get together and our intention is always good. We always intend to wrap presents for our children together. And so we always come together and we are trying to wrap presents. And I'll be honest, what ends up happening every year is we end up talking about the stresses that are going on in our lives, because we're kind of doing something that's off topic and unrelated. And so it kind of relaxes you in a way that you can begin to communicate with others. Again, we're trying to avoid isolation. We don't want people to isolate. So we are 5 minutes to 11. I want to encourage you to share anything else, any questions, any comments that you have at this time. I would love to hear that. I'm just gonna open it up, and if you would like to share or have a question, please unmute or type in the group chat and we can talk for a few more minutes.
And it also occurred to me that sometimes if your spouse is really covering, you could do the stealth thing and call their other important person and say, hey, give my husband a call. He could use somebody to talk to right now, you know?
Yeah. That's a really good point. I also want to bring up another point around farming and stress, and that is, as farmers age, and inevitably because of the equipment and the taxing components of the physical labor as well as the mental stress, sometimes hearing loss occurs. as we all know, body aches and pains occur. Those can contribute to an increased sense of isolation and stress. If someone is in pain or they can't hear what their grandchildren are laughing about, those can be very stressful and adding to the situation. So helping someone identify that it can be a lot of different sources of stress too. This isn't just about whether the farm is profitable or not, that there are a lot of different reasons. All right, then what I'm going to do at this time is I'm going to wrap it up, and what you'll be receiving from me. So I'm going to be sending it out to Extension All, as I did about this presentation, because even if someone is not on this not in this webinar, I still think it's really important for us to share these resources with everyone. I encourage you to have conversations in your county offices, as difficult as they might be, to have these conversations. Let's share the warning signs of stress. Let's post the suicide hotline number next to the phone so that if somebody calls about someone else, let's get them to the right spot. Linda Hyder says, any suggestions on how to get the general public to know we have such resources? Yeah, I think you can do it in a number of different ways, Linda, and you all are far more creative than I am when it comes to any of this. So I'm probably just going to say things that you already know. You know, health fairs are a good time to do that. Will a farmer or a farming family be at the health fair? I don't know. Will someone they know be there and be able to get information back? That would be one source. I would also go to local credit bureaus and banks. I would connect with because when people need money and they're stressed, that's where they'll go. I would also encourage you to reach out to both the schools and their guidance department and the counseling department, as well as to your faith-based organizations in your community, because oftentimes the first place a person will turn to will be to their pastor. And that will be some place that they'll turn. So making sure resources are there. Mary Beth Henley says, rightfully so, Farm Bureau events and crop meetings. So this, that productivity protocol video was shown across the state at dairy producer meetings. So whenever there are big events and big meetings, like I said, it's a brief 15-minute presentation. You can hit play. You don't even have to be there. You can send it with someone else, and they can distribute the productivity protocol. So I agree with that. Display at local co-op and livestock meetings, Mary Beth says. These are all really great resources. I don't think what you're going to be able to do is just do one thing and then everybody's going to find out about it. I think you're going to have to take a multi-angled approach to getting the information out there, because it's just as important to get it out there to the family members as it is to the farmers themselves. I would even go so far as to reach out to any attorneys that might be in your local area that do estate planning, because you often see somebody either changing their will or considering their will, or if there's issues around that. So I would connect with local, both local attorneys and lawyers, but also with law enforcement as well. Can go through Natural Resources, Soil Conservation Service, and Farm Service Agency. Great resources, Mary Beth. And Eileen says, can we have a co-branded farm stress posters to use at field days too? I think that would be amazing, Eileen. That needs approval from people that are higher up than me. So I think you and I should work together to make that happen. And we will reach out and see how we can do that. Mary Beth Henley has done a really nice job of sharing displays around different areas, as well as Justin Thomas, and and Shelby, now used to be Morris. See, look at how I did that. I have done really nice jobs of having some great displays about stress in general, suicide prevention, and farm stress in particular. We have Farm Stress co-branded poster already, says Mary Beth. So we have that available, and it can be used at field days as well, with permission from other people. So you all are going to be the boots on the ground to getting that out there. You have the natural connections and can really activate that getting out there. We will probably need to create more than one present display, and I'd like to have 1 or 2 per region, so that'll be something we're working on. I can also post slides that you can print out and laminate in your own offices and put on a display board for your own use. I can do that as well in the toolkit. Would that be helpful to anyone? Aha, yes, I get a yes. All right, yes, wonderful. I will do that as well then. There will be, so I'm gonna finish up this webinar with us. There will be an email next week. It will come through, and it'll be probably hyper organized, to be perfectly honest, but it will be organized, and you'll be able to link to and access all of these resources. What I would like to try to do is organize it in a manner that if someone is in immediate distress, you're going to go to this folder. If it's a farmer specifically, here are these resources. So I'm going to have multiples of the same thing in different areas in this toolkit. So just know that going in. If you're like, wow, these are a ton of resources, some of them are going to be in multiple places, because we want to make it very, very easy for you to just either throw on a jump drive or email or make it available on Facebook. You can do anything you want to get this information out there to people. All we care about is saving lives and having conversations to keep people safe, healthy, and happy. With that, I wish all of you a very safe, happy, and healthy day and long weekend. And with the email I'll be sending out, there will be a link to an evaluation of this webinar. And as I am coming in hot on tenure, I would really appreciate people to participate in that evaluation. It really helps me to track my ability to reach out and provide resources to you over time. So thank you so much. This has been my most popular webinar to date. We had at maximum, we had 57 people participating. Thank you for being one of them. Thank you for sharing this. I wish all of you a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care.